All right, guys, let's get this thing rolling. I want to today I wanted to go over just some real life scenarios, some negotiation tactics from real life scenarios, things that happen during deals. I've had a couple calls this week from some of our agents just with different situations that they were in. And I think there are things that we can all learn from because, we're going to run into different types of situations like this. So actually, Blanca, I'm glad you're on. I know you have to take off early, but one of them, I wanted to talk about your deal on Albanese, just kind of with that whole situation and how we're navigating that and just insight and perspective. So I'm going to
Yeah.
pull it up. So there's that situation that I wanted to go over. There's another situation with mine and a Ceph's listing in Fremont where we had a lot of people come by the open house. Thought we were going to get a bunch of offers. We only ended up getting 2 offers. There was another property that popped up right in our neighborhood as well that was priced the same but nicer than ours. So I want to talk about that scenario. Like, how do you navigate that scenario? How do you negotiate when you only got 2 offers? And, how do you explain that to the seller? And then there's a third scenario on one of a Cephh submitted an offer, and there's 2, his offer and another offer. And pretty much the listing agent was kind of using his offer as bait to try to get the other offer to come up. And so just kind of talking about that one and kind of just some tips on how to navigate those situations. So we're going to dive in, guys, into some real life scenarios, right? These are actually real scenarios that we're dealing with right now and what you can do to protect your clients, try to win, and try to come out with the best outcome possible. And so let's start off with Blanca's, guys. This is just a quick, just kind of a quick background, right? So Blanca's listing is in contract. Buyer already removed contingencies, but then at the last minute, they're having some delays with financing. They're asking for more time. And then they also are trying to work us for some credits for the carpet and some other stuff. Also saying that the buyer may want to cancel, even though their deposit's on the line. And so just kind of want to go through that scenario. Blanca, just maybe discuss how we're handling it and maybe any tips or strategies.
Yeah.
Some of the talking points here that we can go into is just kind of what the contingency removal really means, right? Like, they remove the contingency. What does that mean legally? But also, how does that play a role in the deal? And then, handling any cold feet, from the buyers versus delays, on their financing. And then when do we really put our foot down, or when do we negotiate, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe we can discuss that a little bit, and you can give some context of kind of what's going on and how we're handling it.
Yeah. So everything's happening at the 11th hour, like getting ready for us to close is when all of these issues are coming up. It definitely they did remove all contingencies from day one when they submitted their offer. So contingencies were removed at the beginning. They did their final walkthrough on Sunday, and I was under the impression that everything was fine, but the agent shared with me that the family had a fallout, and there's multiple family members involved. So everybody has different opinions, of course, and whatnot. The agent is a newer agent. She's not an experienced agent. So I feel they're just really pushing her around. And in some of our conversations, I kind of said, hey, you really need to get a hold of the situation because it seems like they're the ones that are guiding you instead of you guiding them. I did express the risk of the deposit, and her response was, I've told them that many times and they don't care, because they were all mad. They were all mad. They were upset. And she goes, they don't care. I've told that a couple of times, and I've told them their deposit is at risk, and they've responded that they don't care.
Okay, so let's start with that. Let's start with that, right? When we talk about deposit being at risk, because I think that's an important thing for us to clarify of what happens when you remove your contingency, right? And so your deposit is at risk, so to say, per the contract, but legally, it's not like if they cancel, the deposit automatically gets released to the other party, right? They have to agree to release it, right? And so I've seen situations in the past where, yeah, contingencies are removed. One party's trying to cancel, deposits on the line, and the buyer's agent or the buyers, they don't want to sign off saying, yeah, go ahead, take my deposit, you know? So that can happen, right? Where they're like, hey, we're just going to like, put our foot down. We're not going to agree to it. So there's not really much you can do to enforce them and make them release the deposit, and that's kind of what I try to tell, what Blanca and I were discussing is like, hey, at this point, we're not trying to go after a deposit, right? We're trying to close the deal. We're trying to make the deal work. And Blanca said, well, do we give them more time, right? Because they were supposed to close on what day was it? On Monday?
Monday the 26th.
Monday the 26th. They were supposed to close. And now they're saying, hey, we need until the following Monday because of financing delays.
Right.
And so what do you do, right? Like we have our seller who's already moved out, right?
Yeah.
They've already moved out of the property. They've already, staging has already been removed from the house, right? We're representing the seller. And here we are at the 11th hour and the buyer's asking for more money, right?
Yeah.
So I think just in that scenario, we're not trying to steal someone's deposit, because to steal someone's deposit of whatever, 30 grand, is that really going to help the client? I mean, the seller's still going to be in a messed up situation, right?
Yeah.
So what are we really trying to do at that point, Blanca? I mean, how did you navigate this, and what were we trying to do?
So basically what I told my clients is that I said, yes, they've removed their contingencies. However, it's still a process. It's still a process for the deposit to be transferred. And your best bet is to try and get it to close if we're only doing a week out. So then I suggested doing the PITI, which is the principal, interest, tax, and insurance per diem on the mortgage payment. And they agreed. They agreed to the PITI. And my clients also agreed to extend the closing date. And the agent was working hard on her end to get them to move forward. So she went from crediting them $10,000 to $15,000 to get them to move forward. So that's where we're at right now. We've extended to close. We're shooting for Friday, but most likely Monday. Everybody's agreed on the PITI. And then they went back. One of the things was that there was stains on the carpet, and they were upset about that. And the agent also asked if we could credit $1,000 to $2,000. And I said, no, they're not going to credit $1,000 to $2,000. They had the carpets deep cleaned. And this should have been brought up in early negotiations or when the walkthrough happened. They sent back the walkthrough, nothing to note. I said, so let me talk to them. I'm not promising anything. I go back to my client. I said, are you willing to possibly meet them halfway, offer $1,000, keep the ball rolling, or do you want to hold it up? The pros and the cons. I gave her all her options, what it would look like. So they talked and she came back and said, let's go ahead and credit them the $1,000. Let's move on. So that's where we're at right now. Is they agreed to $1,000 credit, closing on Monday, PITI for our clients as well until we close.
Yeah. And I think just like some tips right here, right, when you're dealing with the seller is, you want to be calm, but you also want to be direct, right? You don't want to work the seller up. It's our job to also keep the emotions in check.
Yep.
Because a lot of times it becomes about emotions and about principle.
Yeah.
And when people are basing things off of principle and emotion, that's usually when deals get killed, right?
Yeah.
So our job is to understand, empathize, let them know we're on their side, but get them from emotional decision down to logical decision, right?
Right.
And so, saying something like, hey, yes, they are legally committed. They did remove contingencies. There is a deposit on the line, but that's a process. It doesn't just get released automatically. They could hold it up. We could have to go to mediation and try to get the deposit. But here's where we have some leverage. And so let's keep the ball rolling and put some pressure on them, right?
Yeah.
And so Blanca goes back and says, hey, let's charge them. If they want a week delay, well, that's causing a delay for us. Seller has a mortgage payment still. So we're going to charge you, a PITI, a per diem for the days that you want, right? And so you're giving the clear options to the seller, like, hey, we can grant them a short extension, with the per diem, or we can serve a notice to perform, right? And say, hey, no, you have to close, and then now what's going to happen, right? How is the other side going to respond?
Right.
So I think the key thing also is anticipating, well, if I do this, then what will they do? Right.
Yeah.
Like thinking a couple steps ahead.
Right.
So that you don't create this like bigger deal than it has to be.
Right.
And you're able to smooth things over. Right.
Yeah.
How did, when you're talking to your client about the delays and then now bringing up the carpet issue, how did your client respond? Like, were they upset? Were they pretty reasonable? What, and how did you
she
navigate
was
that?
upset because she feels it's happening at the last minute. And then they also mentioned about the washer in the garage. Just at this point, it sounded like the buyers are just nitpicking at the very last moment. So that was her response. Now, what else are they going to come up with? What else are they going to ask for? I said, as of now, this is what we're dealing with. So let's just address it, resolve it, and move on to the closing. But yeah, she was upset. She's like, what else are they going to come up with? Or what else are they going to say? Or what else are they going to ask for?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is understandable, right? Like,
Yeah.
they've done all this stuff to get their house ready, get it on the market, go through open houses, go through other offers. And then you had another buyer already back out, right?
Yeah, we had the first buyer back out. And then after that, we received another 4 offers and then got in contract. So these are all conversations I'm having also with the buyer's agent is, hey, keep in mind, we had 4 other offers. We selected your offer. I understand you're, trying to keep it together, but all of this will come up. We remove staging, kind of putting the pressure on her as well. But yeah, the client, she wasn't happy, but I just try to keep her focused on the goal that we just want to try to close it. A week is not too much to ask for at the end of the day, as far as fees, wasted time. If we do have to mediate, arbitrate, it's going to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still did inform her, like, if we don't have loan docs, we could still, because we extended till Friday, we could still serve the notice to perform then, still following the contractual steps that we need to follow.
Yeah. And so that's the other thing too, right? Is when do you finally just say, hey, no, we're no longer going to work with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's really a personal decision. But my advice is you have to put some sort of stop loss at a point, right? Because let's say they can't close, right? And they're delaying. You're trying to keep the deal together and you're giving them more time. And then in the end, it doesn't go through. Now you wasted a bunch of time, right?
Right.
So I think you also have to think about that.
Yeah.
Start planting that seed ahead of time with your seller.
Yeah.
Hey, let's give them a week. I know it's a delay. Let's ask them to pay for it. But if they're not ready by then, we have to really consider, do we want to give them more time or do we want to just try to kill this deal, exercise our other options, and try to see if we can go after deposit?
Yep.
Right. And so you also want to like paint the picture for them so that it's not a surprise later on if it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important part as well.
Another thing also on the reason for the delay is the verification of employment for one of the borrowers is because it's a government agency or something in regards to that aspect. So I did ask the buyer's agent to share whatever communication she has as far as that verification. And she did screenshot emails where she was putting the pressure on the verification of employment with the agency. And their response was just very, straightforward. It takes us 7 days. And it did happen on the 7th day.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did ask for some sort of proof, or you did get some sort of proof.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the other tip here.
And that was resolved. And then the fallout happened.
So you got the verification, and then all of a sudden the buyer's kind of having a disagreement on their end.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So
good news on one end, we're ready to go. And then now it's like they're having second thoughts.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think also it's reasonable, and you guys should always try to ask for some sort of proof, right? Like, yeah, you can take their word for it, but you can say, hey, my clients are skeptical. They want to see some sort of proof from, if you're saying there's a delay from the lender, I need something from the lender.
Mhm.
Either them sending an email, screenshot, something showing that, hey, this is why you're delayed, right?
Yeah.
And not just taking your word for it, because they could be BSing sometimes
Yeah.
too,
Mhm.
right? That does
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Pushing back like on when they're asking for the credits at the final hour after they've already done their final walkthrough, right? Like, hey, the buyer had the opportunity to inspect, contingencies are removed. The seller is not going to consider any credits this late, right? You can like hold firm if you wanted to, you know, and you just got to deliver that in a professional
Mhm.
manner, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And also put in some pressure. Hey, like the seller did get 4 other offers, right?
Yep. Mhm.
You know, if you guys can't make the deal work, you know, your deposit is at risk, and then we can also go explore our other offers, you know.
Yeah.
So putting that pressure on them so now they can go relay it back to the buyer and like, hey, we're serious about this.
Right.
Okay. Any questions, guys, on this scenario?
I got a quick question. Would you not just like immediately call the lender and ask what the holdup is?
She is the lender. She's the agent and the lender.
Oh, brilliant.
She wears 2 hats.
Okay.
Yeah.
On. Yeah. Yeah.
So did you go with them because they were like, were they the best offer? Is that what it was?
They were the best offer and the strongest.
Yeah.
And the proof of funds and good down payment. Yeah.
But she's also the lender, she's also the
Mhm.
notary, she's also the stager. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wearing all these hats, right? So
One question, Enrique, sorry. Blanca, so if the offer was strong, buyers were serious, no contingencies, why was the fallout? Like, did you try to ask what happened actually?
Yes. So it's the mom, and the mom was on the purchase agreement. Then she added the daughters. Then the daughters added the spouses. So it went from 1 person to 5 people being added to the contract because they had the disagreement where they didn't want to go through the trust. It was this whole big old issue. So, and this happened also right like 2 weeks into the contract. So that's where and I think it's more amongst them because it was the mom was purchasing for the daughters to begin with. But they're married and now everybody else needed to be added on. So it just became into a big old issue.
man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did not all the daughters, and did they not see the home in the first, like, did the mom only see the home and like the home and trying to purchase, or everybody involved saw the home, like the home, and now they are trying to back out?
Everybody saw the home.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight.
Everybody saw the home. Yeah. But
Yeah.
the qualification and the offer submission was only under the mom's name. And then I'm assuming they were having discussions, you know, amongst themselves and with the loan agent. And that's where all of that came about.
Yeah.
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 Also, one more follow-up question is the third point, right? Like, tell them, like, hey, we have multiple options, backup options. I understand trying to pressurize them, but can it not backfire? Like, because they are already pissed off, they don't care about the deposit. Like, we want to close this deal, right? We can discuss with agent, like, hey, not to scare you, not to pressurize you, but I don't know, like, how that information, if it goes to the buyers, like, hey, sellers are pressurizing, like, they have backup offers, then the buyers will be more frustrated, like, hey, yeah, do whatever you want, right? Like that kind of mentality.
Yeah, when she was expressing to me that they were having second thoughts, this was like already at the closing. So, and I pressured. I didn't care if I didn't care to say no pressure. I did want her to know there was pressure. And I also said, hey, I don't know if they're only going to be satisfied with the deposit. They remove staging, photography, the money they've invested, and they may want to claim all other monies invested into it. And I also said, and they haven't budgeted for extra mortgage payments, plus they're paying rent. I said, so this can really grow up beyond just the deposit.
Yeah. And when someone says they don't care about the deposit, I mean, how much was the deposit? 3%?
Yeah, 30 grand.
30 grand. Who's not going to just care about losing 30 grand? So that's,
Yep.
I would call BS on that.
Yeah.
Remember, sometimes people just say stuff, you know, just because out of emotion.
Yeah.
But $30,000 is a significant deposit to just
Yeah.
lose for not
Yeah.
moving forward, right?
And that was my response when she said, "Oh, they don't care." I said, "Really? It's 30 grand. Who doesn't care nowadays for 30 grand?"
Yeah,
She was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, I know. They don't care. It's just they're crazy. They're mad. They're yelling at each other." I was like, "Okay."
yeah. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't believe that.
and I don't know. I feel like maybe her inexperience of just, keeping a handle on it has played a role as well. Obviously, the mom is the one that's kind of calling the shots. But I told her at some point you need to get a handle of this.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap this one up, and then we'll move on to the next scenario. So I think a big takeaway, guys, is, and this is something, right, looking in hindsight, is the highest offer and best terms is not always the best offer, right?
Mhm.
Of course, the seller sometimes sees a number and they're like, oh, that's the offer. But then it's your job to also, we have to consider the agent, right?
Mhm.
What sort of expectations is the agent setting? If the
Mhm.
agent's very new, you can't bank on the fact that they're setting really good expectations with their clients. Did they already consult him thoroughly? Does the client really know what they're getting into? That's a gamble that you're running, right? Now, if
Yeah.
the offer is way off, like the other offer is way, way lower, then it's okay. Maybe it's worth the risk or the gamble. But that is something that you may want to just let your clients know. Hey, look, I know this offer is a lot better, but the only thing we got to realize is this agent is not that experienced, right? Because sometimes, looks can be deceiving right on the front end. I would just keep that in mind, if we have to go around a second time. But sometimes
Yeah.
the seller, ultimately they want the most money too, right? So it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's not always in our control.
Yeah. And this was a round of counters too. So it was like, giving them their options, and it, like you said, it's just educating them and letting them know and kind of going through that scenario. But at the end of the day, they make the decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because remember, on the offer itself, nowhere on the offer does it say how many deals the agent closed,
No.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It only says the price and the terms, right? And so
Yeah.
that's just something that, we can go back and investigate a little bit. And if they're a little bit newer, I think it's okay to ask them, hey, I noticed you've only closed 2 deals in the last year.
Mhm.
How experienced are you?
Mhm.
Does the client really know what they're getting themselves into? Do you have a mentor or somebody else that's working with you on this deal, just in case, whatever things go sideways, or if there's any issues that come up?
Yeah.
And maybe if they really want the deal to go through, maybe they bring in a mentor or somebody else that is more experienced, and now you have someone that you can go to for things like
Right.
this, right?
Right.
So just some advice, going into this scenario again.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, let's move forward.
I gotta go. See ya.
Thank you, Blanca. Thanks for sharing. I know Blanca had to run to a meeting. Okay, next scenario, guys. You got a listing and you got less offers than you expected, and there's another new listing that just popped up in the neighborhood, right? So this was a real scenario for Asif and I for our listing in Fremont, where we let me meet you up. For our listing in Fremont, right? We had a lot of groups come in when we first put the property on the market. We were like the only property in that neighborhood that was on the market. And so we had a lot of leverage, right? We purposely priced it a little bit low to try to drive traffic, which it did. We had, probably 20 groups of people through each open house. And we did like 2 weekends of open house. So there was a lot of people that came through, a lot of people that downloaded the disclosures. And so we were thinking we were going to get a bunch of offers, but we only ended up getting 2 offers. While we were on the market, within that next week, before we had taken offers, that other property pops up, and same model match, except fully remodeled, like done up way nicer than ours. We fixed ours up. We did, some work to it, but there was still some things on our property that needed some work, like the roof, the windows, and stuff like that. And this other one was fully done up all the way. So that was like, what do we do, right? We're already on the market. This other one pops up and they price the same price as ours, right? So it's like, all right, so if you're a buyer and you're shopping, you're looking at this one, you're looking at this one. we're kind of in a tough spot, right? And the other challenge that we have is that our seller is out of state. And so our seller's out of state, and he works the night shift, and he takes a while to get back to us, right? So even trying to go through negotiations and counter offers and all that, he sometimes takes like a day or two to get back to us, right? So that's another challenge that we had there. So what do we do, right? Like me and Asif were like trying to strategize. How do we handle the 2 offers that we got, and try to see the highest we can get? And then how do we handle the seller situation so that we can keep the ball moving forward and not potentially lose these buyers that we had on the hook, right? So first step, guys, is how do we handle the offers? Now, the property was listed at 1699. 1699. The 2 offers we got were basically the list price, 17 and like 1701. Like, we thought this thing was going to go, higher, maybe close to 18, but it didn't, right? So that was a challenging part. So now we're thinking like, well, what do we do, right? How do we try to get these offers up? What do we do? And so our tactic was to start kind of playing the offers against each other. And right off of the interest that we had, because those buyers came through the open house, they saw a lot of other buyers coming through. They don't know if we had 2 offers or not. For all they know, we had 10 offers, right? And so immediately through the dialogue with the agents, we wanted to let them know, hey, we have a lot of interest. We received a handful of offers. We didn't say 2. We just said we received a handful of offers. There may be a few more coming in, but what is your buyer willing to do, right? What's their highest and best price? Are they willing to compete? Are they willing to participate in a multiple counter? Stuff like that. And so having that dialogue, right? And kind of already prepping where we think this thing is going to go. Immediately, one of the offers said like, hey, we're maxed out. This is at the top of our budget. The other offer said, hey, we may have a little bit of room, but not that much room. There's a house down the street that's nicer. And so we may go for that one, right? And so what we try to do is like, hey, how are we going to get them to come up without scaring them away, right? And can we do multiple counter offers with our seller being out of state and working the night shift and taking like 2 days to respond to emails, right? It just wasn't going to work. And so we did the best that we could do, right? So we started having a verbal negotiation. We started painting the picture. Hey, we think if you can get, to the mid 175s or, high 17s, this could work, right? And started kind of painting that picture. We did some verbal negotiations back and forth. We let them know we had a couple offers, and we were able to get one of the offers to come up another $30,000. So one of them said, hey, that's it. That's all I could do. Top of my budget. The other offer said, hey, I can come up 30 grand. Right. So they came up 30 grand. And our job right there is like, well, what do we do? Right. Do we keep it going? Do we try to accept that offer? Do we try to push harder? We don't have anybody else submitting an offer. And so what we chose to do now is, try to sell it to the client that, hey, this is probably the best you're going to get. Right. So navigating the conversation with the agents, right? Like I said, the first thing is to use the activity from the open house to validate your interest. Let them know, hey, we're getting a lot of interest, right? Put the pressure on them a little bit. Start asking them for their highest and best. Hey, we have strong activity, sellers motivated to work with serious buyers. And then we started using the pressure. Hey, look, if you can just send us a revised offer, our client's out of state, he doesn't want to do a lot of back and forth, but if you can revise your offer and get it up somewhere in this price range, then we have a good shot, right? And because we did that, that one offer came up another 30K. With the seller, right? We had to now go back to the seller and explain this to him, right? How do you explain to him that, hey, there's another property that's nicer than yours. It's priced for the same price. Not offend him, but also help him realize that, hey, like this is probably the best it's going to get, right? That was the scenario that we're trying to do. So we jumped on a call with him finally. And what we did is we just gave him the whole kind of story from start to finish. Like, here's how it started out. Here's how the open houses went. Here's the dialogue. Here's how many people came to the open house. Here's how many offers we ultimately got. Here's what people were pointing out on the inspection reports to us. Hey, I know we fixed up the property some, but some of the things we didn't choose to do were like the roof, and the roof needs to be replaced. We didn't choose to touch the windows, or anything like that. That's, another 10, 15, 20 grand. We didn't choose to, address some of the termite work. There was another 7 grand on the inspection reports. And so if we add all those things up, like, hey, you're at least another 50 grand worth of things that need to happen. Right. And we also let him know that we've been negotiating back and forth with these clients where the offer started out at, and then what we got them to come up to. Right. And then we did some math for him. Like, hey, look at, if this offers at 1,730, they're still going to have to invest at least another 50 or 60 grand. Maybe if they want to touch the backyard, that can be 100 grand total. If we were to put that money into the property, then maybe we can get more, but I don't think we want to spend another 100 grand on this property. So once we kind of painted that whole scenario for him, we said, hey, these are a couple options. Either we make a move right now and we try to just take what we can get, and we can close escrow in 25 days. We also painted the picture that they were non-contingent. So, once the offer's in, there's a good likelihood it's going to close. There's deposits on the line, all that good stuff. Or we keep doing open houses. We hope that something comes better, but then we have this other property down the street that is significantly more improved than yours. What do you want? What do you want to do? Right. And then here's what we would advise you to do. Right. We said, hey, we would advise you to run with this offer. Take it. We don't know if it's going to get much better. And in 25 days, this thing could be all over. Right. So once we went through that whole kind of dialogue with him, he said, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to be greedy. Maybe we can try to get a little bit more, but yeah, I don't think that's a bad. Let's just go with it. If you guys think this is good, let's just go with it. And he agreed to move forward with the offer. Right. So now we're in contract, deposits in, appraisal got done, and we should be closing like in another 2 weeks or so. And so maybe we can talk through this a little bit more, guys. I want to see maybe what questions you have, or if you've been in any similar scenarios that you maybe want to talk about, or any questions on, how we handled this, or if there's anything you might have done differently to handle a scenario like this.
Blanca and I had a similar situation with Salmon Drive. And then Blanca suggested that we reach out to both mortgage officers just to see what the actual cap is based on like the interest and really gauge. And that's how we understood like one of them could actually have more wiggle room than we actually thought. And it just took the agent to like talk to them or talk to their buyers to actually increase even more. And then that's just like suggesting like if you can get it here, then you have a good shot. That's another strategy.
Yeah. So talking to the lender to really see, okay, is the agent telling the truth, right? Because the agent's trying to sell, hey, this is what we can offer. The lender may say, oh yeah, they're actually approved for more, right? Or actually the funny thing on this one, which I forgot to mention, was the loan agent for the offer we went with knew Jason, and actually called Jason and said, hey, we're writing an offer. I'm the loan officer. And Jason was able to kind of gauge, and he did reaffirm that they didn't have a lot more wiggle room. Like they can go up a little bit, but that the husband and wife weren't on the same page. The wife didn't want to go past a certain amount. Otherwise, they wanted to go look at something that was more fixed up. So we kind of found that out through that. And so we knew like, okay, what the lender's saying and what the agent are saying, like it's in line, right? Who knows if they were both BSing us, but at least we kind of verified it through both of them, right? But yeah, good suggestion. Talk to the lender, see if it's true. What else you guys got?
Yeah, I have been in this situation, one with you, where our first home, it did not meet the client's expectations, right? Because the market
Mhm.
was it was falling because of tariffs and all those news came at the wrong time. But my question here is, you said like this home needed some repair work, right? Let's say 50K. So with
Mhm.
that repair work, still the comp was at 1.8 and you listed at 1.699, or
Yeah, that's a good question. So for this one, I mean, in this neighborhood of Fremont, there hasn't been a lot of recent sales because it's like a highly desirable neighborhood. People usually buy there. The schools are great, and then a lot of people aren't selling, at least not in the recent months. So there were some comps like months and months ago, or even last year, that
Yeah.
were in the 1.8s, high 1.7s. But the market, has kind of, stopped a little bit
Yeah.
or slowed down a little bit. So we thought, hey, if we price at 1.699, it's going to look attractive. We could probably be in the 1.7s, 1.8, maybe if things go well. The house was completely original, mostly original. It had been rented for a long time. So when we went in there, um, we went in there with our contractor, with Jim, and like there was so much more we could have done, but
Yeah.
it was like at a certain point, like we're not trying to build a new house, right? So we focused on, the paint, the flooring, updating the kitchen, like painting the cabinets, putting new knobs, putting a new countertop. Um, the backyard still needed to be done. The roof was, at the end of its life. There was just a lot. There's more that it would have been like just opening up more of a can
Yeah.
of worms, right?
Yeah.
And the seller, he didn't want to keep going more and more. He's like, let's just do the minimum that it's going to take to make it look nice and presentable, but I don't have an unlimited budget, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the challenge, right? Is we're trying to get the most that we can, and we want to guide the seller, but then we also don't want to push it too much where we put the seller in a worse position, right? Like if I would have completely pushed these other offers and try to like really play hardball and counter at a way higher price, I could have lost both offers.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And so if I had all these people look at the disclosures, all these people come through the open house, and only 2 people submitted, the market's kind of telling us like, hey, this is where it's at. Yeah. Any other questions, guys, on this one? Okay. Let's go into the last one, guys. This is the last one we'll touch on. And this is something you guys probably might run into when you're working with buyers, right? Is when the agent is using your offer as leverage. Like, they're trying to use your offer as leverage for other offers. So this was a scenario with Asif. And one thing I really want to point out with Asif, guys, that I really want to praise him for, is he submitted this offer. He didn't get the offer. He was obviously a little upset because he likes to win. He's competitive. But immediately he booked the call with me to go over the scenario and ask me what could he have done differently. Right. And I think that's important, right? Like, it's great when we win, because we know like, okay, whatever we did to make it work, it worked. But when you lose sometimes, which we all run into the scenarios, are you revisiting your process? And are you trying to find out if you could have done this a different way that would have gave you a better chance of winning? Right. And so I think that speaks to just kind of Asif's growth mentality and how he just wants to continue to do better. Is even though he knows a lot and he's done well, he still picks my brain anytime something like this happens and say, hey, I just give me your feedback. Could I have done something differently? What am I missing here? Am I not seeing it? And so and I'll tell you a little bit about what I told him and some advice I give him. But let's kind of run through the scenario. So he submitted an offer is a family friend. The offer was like around 2 million, right? So it's a big deal. They submitted an offer on the property. They only had one other offer. So it was Asif's offer and the other offer. Now, this agent that was the listing agent, I don't think he sent them a counter. He was just doing all verbal kind of counters, right? And Asif was trying to figure out, okay, if we come up to this or this price, do we have a deal, right? Like he was just trying to like, what's it going to take to win, right? And kind of going back and forth. So the agent started doing verbal counters, said, hey, I need you to come up to this price. And also the other offer said they're willing to lower their commission, right? From 2.5% to 1% commission. So was trying to get him to lower the commission and increase the price to make it work, right? To obviously give the seller a higher net. And so Asif didn't want to lower the commission, right? But he was willing to work that out with his buyer if he needed to. But he was just trying to get a definitive answer from the agent. Well, hey, if I go back to my buyers and we do that, do we have a deal? Because I don't want to keep going back and forth, right? So Asif was also trying to play hardball. And the listing agent didn't want to commit to him. He goes, well, send me your offer and I'll show it to the sellers. You know, there's another offer and they really want the property too. And so Asif went back to his clients. The clients agreed to bring up the offer. He calls him back, lets him know, hey, we're willing to bring up the offer, but I just want to make sure we have a commitment, right? If we send this offer to you, I'll write it up. Do we have a commitment? It seems like that agent took that information, went back to the other offer, used that, got them to come higher. So now by the time Asif sent his offer in, that other offer was already even higher than what Asif was coming back at, right? So Asif's like, man, I just feel like I got done dirty. I feel like this guy played us. You know, he wasn't like negotiating ethically. You know, he was using our offer as kind of bait to get the other offer to go up. And, you know, what could I have done different? And so my advice to Asif was this, Asif, a lot of what Asif was saying was, hey, it wasn't right the way the guy negotiated, right? Like he wasn't acting ethical, right? He was telling us one thing, using us, and then he used us. You know, that's not, you know, how you should be negotiating. And what I told Asif is like, hey, there's not really any rules to negotiating. There's what you think is right in principle, that's fine. But when you go to like the real estate school or anything like that, they don't say, hey, this is the rule you have to follow. It's an open game at that point, right? And like the listing agent was doing their job of trying to get you to your highest and best and playing people against each other to get the highest possible price, right? But Asif was stuck on like process, right? He was stuck on, okay, well, if he said this, he should send us a counter and we should accept this, and then we're in contract and we have a commitment. And I said, best case scenario, that's how it should go, but that's not how it works. There's some agents that they want to just work you. They want to feel like they're really getting you, and they want to like negotiate, and they like this stuff, and they're going to play dirty, and they're going to, you know, deceive you, and they're going to try to just get you to play ball, and they're just trying to get the highest possible price. To me, it's like in a fight, right? In a street fight, are there any rules in a street fight? Not really, right? Like just don't kill anybody, but there's that saying, there's no rules in a street fight, right? You got to do what you got to do to win. It's you against them. And so I had to remind Asif that, hey, just because you think it should go this way, it doesn't mean it always goes this way. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying, you know, maybe that's not how I do it. I like to be open and transparent with people. But at the end of the day, his duty isn't to satisfy your feelings or your ego. His duty is to get his client the best possible result, right? And so we need to remember that, guys, when we're going into these negotiations, is there's the science of the negotiation, you know, the step-by-step and the process and the counters and how you think it should go. But then there's also the art of negotiation, where you're using the verbal battles and you're bluffing and you're painting a picture and you're influencing the transaction. That's art right there, right? There's an art to that. And so the agents who know how to switch from science mode and process mode to art and sales and, you know, using the emotion and using that stuff, those are the agents that typically win the most in the negotiation, right? Depending on what side you're on. Now, what could he have done differently, right? Because you got to put yourself in the perspective of the buyer. The buyer is relying on whatever you tell them to paint the picture of how this negotiation is going, right? And so if Asif goes back to the buyer and tells the buyer that this agent isn't playing fair, what does the buyer start to think in their mind, right? Who has the answer to that question? If a thief's upset on how the agent is handling the negotiation and it kind of relays that to the buyer, what do you guys think will happen? Shri.
He thinks that first of all, Asif is not capable to handle this negotiation.
That's one possibility, right? Maybe they think Asif's not capable, right? What else can go in the buyer's mind?
I think it's mostly, I think, yeah, it's getting emotional. And I have seen in this one situation, like it gets too emotional. And it, what happens is it evades your best interest initially when you get emotionally into the negotiations.
Exactly, right? So we need to be careful to not relay our frustration with the listing agent, to not give that to the buyers,
Buyers.
right? I don't know if he did that or not. I'm just painting the scenario because this is how I would look at it. But just because you're pissed off at how the agent's handling negotiation doesn't mean you voice that to the buyers, because then the buyer starts thinking emotionally, oh, well, screw that agent, screw this seller, right? Like they're just trying to like whatever. And then it goes from like, logically, do we want this house and how much are we willing to pay versus, well, I don't want to negotiate just because I don't like the way they're playing. All right. And if you have that thought process, you usually don't end up winning, right?
Yeah.
Because your emotions start to guide the transaction. So it's important that Asif keeps those two separately, or any agent, right? Not just Asif. Any agent keeps those separately of, okay, understand how this guy's playing, but then translate that into a logical way for our buyers to think about it, right? Because you don't want them to like blow up and their emotions blow up and then they lose the deal because they didn't want to act because of emotion, right? And we've probably all dealt with that in the past. So it's important that we control the emotion and how the negotiation feels, right? That's the art. That's the art part of it, right? And so spot when you're being played, right? If we know this guy's playing us and he already said, hey, I can't commit to you, just send me your offer. We need to know, okay, this is going to go a different way, right? I'm not going to be able to win logically with this guy of just like, hey, send me a counter, give me it in writing, anything like that, right? So we need to spot when we're being played. We need to ask the right questions, right? So, hey, where's your other offer at? Hey, what's it going to take? Hey, how much does the seller need to net? Hey, what else is important to the seller other than just the price and the commission or the net? Is there anything else I can do to sweeten the deal, right? Do they need a shorter close, non-contingent? I think they're both non-contingent anyways, but is there anything outside of it being non-contingent that would sweeten the deal for your seller, right? What if I can close in 20 days instead of 30 or instead of 25? And then managing your client's emotions while you're negotiating, but even after you lose the deal, right? And so he was doing everything he could, right, to say like, hey, if we agree, do we have a deal? The guy wouldn't give confirmation, right? If the guy's saying, yes, we have a deal, get it in writing, right? Also, is this going to be a multiple counter or are we negotiating one-on-one? That's important to understand. Hey, are you countering all of us or can you just do a one-on-one counter with me? I can try to make the price work and we'll get a deal and we'll wrap this up, right? Now, what I told Asif is, look at, as soon as you spotted that this guy wasn't playing like the right way, what I would have done is I would have went back to my client and I would say, hey, look at, there's somebody else that really wants this property. We don't have time to kind of go back and forth. We need to shoot our best shot at this point. Otherwise, we're probably going to lose it. And so by us trying to like figure out like how low can we go? What's the most you're willing to pay for this to make this deal work? Do you really like the property? Do you really, want it? Can you see yourself living here? If we got to go up to this price, are you okay with that price? Because I think because of that delay, that highest and best price never went in writing and someone else did, and then they swooped it, right? So I would have just written up a new offer or an addendum or something, and I would have just said, here you go. It's in writing. Here's my best offer. Because then at that point, you're not getting caught up in like the back and forth of negotiations and conversations, right? At that point, it's now in the ball's now in their court. They have to show it to their seller. right? And so sometimes you don't, when it's down to the wire like that, you don't have time to wait and hope that they tell you where it has to be. You just got to send it, you know? So don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm not going to play this game. Here you go. Let's just let's just get to the point. Here's my offer. Here you go. It's in writing. This is the best we can do. Is it a deal or not? Right. Who knows if he would have won, but maybe that would at least give him a better shot to continue moving that thing forward. Right. The other thing that's important, guys, is since they didn't get this deal, is how do we use that experience as a learning lesson, right? Because sometimes this happens, right? Sometimes it takes a few shots of submitting offers on different properties before you finally get accepted. So what I advised him to do is, hey, look since we didn't get this one, you need to immediately set up a strategy session with your buyer. Set up a conversation with your buyer, whether it's a Zoom, whether it's a call, and say, hey guys, anytime, this is part of my process. Anytime we miss out on a property, I always want to have a strategy session with you. Let's kind of recap what went right, what went wrong, what can we do different the next time we see a property that we like, right? Because what you want them to do is you want them to learn each time so that they get a little better and better. And now on the next time, we're not wasting time with a lot of the other stuff. We're like ready to go and we're ready to shoot our shot, right? If they're not learning from every situation, naturally, a lot of buyers are just going to do the same old things that they did on the other ones, right? Have you guys experienced that where this guy wants to keep submitting a low ball, right? Like on every single one, right? And you're like, did we not learn from the last one, right? And so it's going to save you guys a lot of time, a lot of headache if you're doing a recap or a strategy session after you've lost out on a deal, right? What did they learn? And ask them, hey guys, what'd you guys learn from this process right here, right? What'd you guys learn about the market and how the market is competing in these areas that you're looking at, right? Hey, going forward, if we find a property that we really like, ask them, what do you think we could do differently to make sure you get that best one? Here's what I would do. Here's what I would advise you to do. Now the client feels like you guys are in this together. You're working with them. You're guiding them through this journey, and you're going to get them in contract a lot sooner, right? Okay, I know I'm talking a lot. We got 5 minutes left, guys. Questions? Let's unpack this a little bit. I want to know your guys' thought processes. I know you guys deal with this stuff a lot. Any scenarios that you've got over or any questions you have when dealing with stuff like this, right? And getting buyers to come up.
For me, Enrique, actually, I think we both got into a call once with the same scenario. Then you told me the first thing, Shri, never ever do the verbal conversations. Just put in the paper and send it. You're wasting your time. That worked for me a lot of times. After you mentioned that to me, like I usually directly negotiate with the listing agent, like, hey, if we do this, I'm gonna, send you the offer in next 10 minutes. Do we have a deal? Or he's like, I can present it to my, clients, and if they're okay, otherwise we'll send you a counter, right? So for me, what worked was instead of wasting time on these negotiations, just send the offer out again or add an addendum. At least, that worked for me a lot of times in those scenarios. Instead of going back and negotiating with the buyers or anything, I go back to the buyers. Hey, this is what they're expecting. Let's roll out the new offer. Don't wait till they send us the counter back. Who knows? In between, someone else sent the offer out with that number and they took it.
Yep.
So that scenario worked for me like in mostly 3 deals. One agent actually told me that, good, you sent me the offer because I'm outside. I don't have time to send you the counter. I'm driving.
Yeah.
You send me the offer. I will just talk with the owners and I will ratify it.
Yeah, I think that's good, right? How do we make it easy, right? Like that's the other thing is sometimes by you doing that, you make it easy. You save the agent another step of counter offers and back and forth. Because if you guys ever done multiple counters, guys, it's tedious. You got to go in there and check all these little boxes and write them all up, and each one has to be different. It's a lot of work sometimes. And so sometimes it's like, hey, let me just send you a new clean offer. The terms that we discussed, here you go. Now you just got to get it signed. That's it, right? That makes it easy to win, right? Easy for them to want to work with you. Because some agents are lazy, guys. They don't want to go through all that stuff, right? So understand that. Anybody else have a situation or scenario or a question or feedback on this? All right, guys. We'll wrap this thing up, guys. I know that this isn't necessarily the sexy part of the business, but this is the part, guys, that when you're close and like you're an inch or two away from the end zone, right? Like this is going to get your offers to go through, right? You need to know how to navigate these certain scenarios. And the biggest takeaway, guys, is that negotiation, right? It's controlling emotions and it's leveraging what you got, right? There's a big part of negotiations is the emotion, right? How people feel about the negotiation, right? Your job is to stay calm and professional and in control, even when other people are freaking out. Your job is to be the one that brings them down to center, right? Especially when it's your buyers or your sellers who are acting emotionally, you got to bring them. The more calm you are, the more logical you could be. You get them out of emotion and into logic. Ask questions, right? Ask better questions. Be willing to walk away when you have to, but also know that our job is to close the deal too, right? So yeah, you're going to want to do what you can to close the deal, but there's that fine line of how much do I push and how to close a deal, or when do I just walk away, right? So you have to kind of tread that fine line. And just remember, guys, your job is to guide and protect your client, not make the other agent happy, right? And so there's no rules to the game, guys, with negotiations. It's just your job is to try to make it work. You're trying to bring all parties together, and sometimes people get pissed off, but that's not what it's about, right? Your job is to protect your client. Okay, we're 1 o'clock on the dot, guys. I appreciate you guys sitting through this. I know this was a lot of talking, but hopefully you can take some of this now and use this on your own scenarios. And if you guys run into anything, so the good thing about these 3 scenarios is these were real scenarios that happened within the last week, just FYI. And all of these agents called me to run through these scenarios, right? Blanca was going through this. She called me, hey, I want to pick your brain. This is what I got. Asif, hey, this is what happened with this one. And then me and Asif on the Morley one, we've been on conversations. So don't be afraid, guys, to reach out to me when you're in these scenarios, because I sometimes can give you a different perspective that you may not be seeing. And that could be the difference between you winning or not winning, right? And so remember, guys, I'm just a call away, a text away, and I got time for you guys, right? Just reach out to me. That's all I got, guys.